Hello, family. Real talk, real solutions with Pam and Shay.
All right, honey, let's spill this tea. All right. As life goes on, I'm realizing that a lot of people do a lot of assuming.
Okay.
I'm running into that a lot. A lot of people, just hearing about a lot of people that just are in life, just assuming certain things in life. And it's really mind boggling to me. And I think that's because I don't understand it.
Okay.
I don't understand why not just talk to the person? Why not have a conversation?
Okay, now that's deep.
Why not get the real answer?
Right.
Why just assume that you and that person are in a relationship?
Okay.
Or why just assume that that's your friend?
Mm-hmm.
Why just assume that it's more than what it is? Why all the assuming to me? I don't understand that. And I feel like a lot of times it does start when people are younger.
Okay.
And I say that because I was having a talk the other day, and I mentioned the assuming thing, and this person was like, well, I used to assume because growing up, my mother never really talked to me. She kind of just, she never really had conversations with me about stuff. She said that her mom would always just be like, because I said so, because I said so. So because she never really got answers for anything, and her mom just always said, because I said so, she grew up doing a lot of assuming.
Okay.
Because she couldn't get answers for nothing.
Okay.
So I definitely could see where that comes from. So I began to think about that. And that's kind of what brought all this to my mind.
Okay.
It's just like, I do run across a lot of people just assuming things are a certain way, and I do know, like, as kids, you remember how, like, your mom you might want to go somewhere, you might want to do something, but because you just assumed your mother was going to say no, you didn't ask.
That's right.
Or because they said no last time, oh, I ain't gonna ask this time because last time she said no, so you just assume she's gonna say no again. So then I think as we do that as kids, we grow up and we just continue to do that.
So it becomes a lifestyle.
It becomes a lifestyle. I think it becomes a lifestyle.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm getting out of this. And then I think also a lot of times we assume because we just want it to be that way.
Ooh.
We want that to be our man.
Yeah.
We want that to be our woman. So we just assume that that's our woman or our man.
Right.
We, instead of like having the conversation of like, where do we stand? What are we doing?
Right.
What's going on here?
Right.
Like, I realized even from talking to my kids that this generation just kind of assumes they're in a relationship. They don't really ever even had that conversation of like, is this a relationship?
Right.
Where is this going? What are we doing?
Right.
So they just assume. So then now we out. We at the mall. Now I'm assuming that this is my man. I'm assuming this is my woman.
Right.
Because we're chilling, we're hanging out every day, we're spending time together, we're on the phone all night. This new generation, they talk on the phone, and they fall asleep on the phone. So we fall asleep on the phone at night. We're doing all of those things. So now I'm assuming that this is my man or this is my woman. But now we at the mall or we're out and about. They see their friend, somebody they know. Oh, hey, this is my friend, such and such. And you looking like friend. Ooh. And they looking like, yeah, friend.
Ooh, that is such cool.
But you can't be mad because they never told you was a woman or they was your man. You just assumed that was your woman or that was your man.
Right.
And that's why we got to stop doing that, because technically that person is not wrong, because that person has never told you that you're their man or you're their woman. They've never told you that.
Right.
And then we got this thing just assuming, and now you see them out with another girl, and now you feel like they cheating on you. But to them, I'm not cheating. We have never said we're together.
Right.
So we just kicking it. And as people think, oh, it's been 5-6 years, you can't do that either. Because you definitely have people out here that will talk to you for 5 or 6 years, and to them, you not they woman. You ain't they man. We've been just kicking it. We just been kicking it. I've been thinking, I thought you was doing you too.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that's what we was doing. I just thought we was kicking it. You thinking like it's been 5 years just kicking it. But there are people out here that do that.
They do.
We have to stop assuming. I mean, what is your outlook on assuming? Like, how do you feel about assuming?
I think what you just said, I agree with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think assuming is just not good.
It's not good.
And I think sometimes when you assume it can't become a lifestyle for you, because I know when I was growing up, my parents used to always say what goes on in this house stays in this house. So it made me like keep a lot of secrets. I was good at keeping secrets because I felt like, okay, this has got to be the right thing to do. But also too, when I was in a relationship, I hate to say it,
but you did some assuming.
But I did some assuming.
You did some assuming.
I did some assuming. And I think it had a lot to do with the way I was raised.
Okay.
Some of the things my parents had said to me about life, as far as some of the things you don't do, just like I do remember my parents saying, because I said so.
Because I said so. Okay.
Yeah, it was always, you do what I say. Don't do what I do.
Okay.
But do what I tell you to do.
Okay. See, of course, I didn't grow up like that.
Right.
So I never really was an assumer. I mean, of course, I'm not saying I just never ever assumed. Of course, there was things I assumed, but it was very rare.
Right.
Because I didn't grow up with my mom saying like, because I said so. I grew up with a mother that communicated, and we talked, and we had those conversations, and because of that, it helped me to just never assume and to communicate. I was fortunate for that. But I also grew up with a dad that taught me to never assume. Okay. But he taught me to never assume because of his actions. Oh. So I always felt like I'm not going to assume anything from anybody, because I would assume that my dad would want to be a dad. I would assume that my dad will want to, love me. I'm an only child. I'm his only child, and I'm a girl. So I would assume that just that alone would, want him to have a relationship with me and want him to be there for me and actually be a father figure to me. But it just never really went that way. Okay. So that let me know, like, I can't just assume anything in life. I have to make sure. I have to get, assurance in these things in life, because what I would have assumed, it wasn't like that. Okay. So that was like an eye opener for me. I don't know if that sounds crazy or not, but for me,
no, it don't sound crazy.
That relationship,
it sounds real.
Really opened my eyes to assuming at an early age. So when I went through life, I never assumed that a man was my man because we spent a lot of time together. I never assumed that a man really liked me because he called me every day. Okay. I never really assumed that we were going to be something. I just took it for what it was.
So and are you saying that in life and relationships, you never assumed, or you never took it for granted that this is the way it's going to be because we're spending all this time together? We're always together. We're always talking on the phone. So you would always ask the tough questions. You never just assumed.
I never assumed like that. Really, I didn't. When I first started talking to a guy, I even used to play this thing called like the question game.
Okay.
Where I would ask the questions. I would ask questions. Okay. I would like really get to know that person and try to like figure out how that person was. Okay. So that I wouldn't have to assume his character. Okay. I wouldn't have to assume his favorite color. I wouldn't have to assume his favorite food. I got down, I asked the questions because that's just the type of mother that raised me. Okay. So I was just always a communicator. That's good. I just never, even to the point of like a guy leave. Oh, I'm going to come back in 15, 20 minutes or whatever. We're going to go to the movies. I got to run up the street.
You crazy, girl. You are crazy.
I did not assume he would be back. What I did was thought to myself, like 15, 20 minutes. So we here now. It's gonna take you 15 minutes to get where you're going. So how you gonna be back in 15, 20 minutes? So I'm not getting dressed until you come to that door.
Right.
And then that's when I say, hold on real quick, and I'll go throw my clothes on. But I'm not gonna assume that you just really coming back because like
you just left, right?
You just left. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Just coming back.
And so because I didn't assume that he would really be back when he didn't come back, I'm okay with that. Because I didn't set myself up for failure in that area. I took it for what it was. Like, okay, cool. If he come back, he come back. If he don't, he don't. I'm not going to assume that he's really gonna come back. And I think that was also me, like, a lot of times protecting my heart and protecting my feelings and my emotions because my heart had been broken so much by my dad. So I always felt like I had to protect my heart. And I knew that assuming would not be protecting my heart. Assuming would be hurting myself. So I felt like I had to ask the questions. You know, I had to care about me more.
Yeah,
you know, and so I feel like when we assume, it just doesn't end well for us, you know. And I'm not sitting here saying I've never assumed. Don't get me wrong. You know, of course, in life, you know, when you get married, you assume it's gonna last. You know, when you're in a relationship, when you finally do ask the questions and you get in that relationship, you assume that it will work out. You know, you will assume those types of things.
Just like you get married, you're assuming that marriage is going to last, and maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't. So, of course, I'm not saying I've just never assumed in life. I'm not saying that I just have never done that. But I'm just saying, before we even get to the point of marriage and the boyfriend and the girlfriend, I didn't assume that man was going to treat me the way I wanted him to treat me. I didn't assume that man was going to give me the same energy I was giving him. I didn't assume that friend was going to be the same friend to me that I was to them, you know, because...
So you was always one step ahead of the game.
I tried to be, because...
Sounds like you
were. I mean, for one, I know that I'm me and they're them.
Okay.
So we're never going to be equal. Okay. You know, not saying that in a bad way, like I'm better than them or nothing. I'm just saying you just can't be equal because you're not the same. So it's always going to be some area where I'm giving more in the friendship, and it's going to be areas where they're giving more in the friendship. It's going to be areas where I'm giving more in the relationship, and when this person's giving more in the relationship. So I'm not going to go into that friendship just assuming it's going to always like be equal. Like they're going to give me the same as I'm giving them. They're going to treat me the same way I'm treating them. You know, but I think a lot of times we do that. We do things in life where we feel we do things because we think, well, they would do it for me, or, you know, well, if I need it, I'm sure they'll do it for me too, or they'll be there for me because I've been there for them.
Okay.
And then when you look up and you've been there for them, and then now you need them to be there for you, and they're not. Now you hurt, you mad, you upset, you know, you feeling a type of way because it's like, I was there for you.
Right.
When that man broke up with you, I was there. You know, I was there for you. Where you at for me now? You know, because you just assume that they would be there for you, and we can't do that. We cannot just assume that a person's going to give us the same energy. You know, we got to stop assuming. I mean, even down to just the little things, you know.
Right.
We got to just stop assuming things and start asking the questions, start using our brains, start thinking, start paying attention to people's actions, you know. And then sometimes... Well, I guess it's the same thing. Stop paying attention to people's actions. You can pay attention to people's actions, good or bad. But I do feel like sometimes that we do, because we pay attention to people's actions, we start to assume. Because we're looking at like all the things they're doing for us, and, you know, so we assume that.
But it can put you in the state of assuming. It can place you in that moment of assuming, because like I said earlier, when I was in a relationship, I did date a guy. And we did spend a lot of time together. We did do stuff together. I mean, we was in a relationship. I thought I was his girl and he was mine.
But did y'all have the conversation?
No.
Or did you just assume?
No, we never. I assumed.
Okay.
And that relationship taught me a lot about assuming. So
what did you learn? What did you learn about assuming from that relationship? Because that's a good one. That's good that just from that simple relationship, kind of like how I said the relationship with my dad.
Right.
Just from that simple relationship, what did you learn about assuming from that relationship?
You can't assume. You got to ask questions. You got to get answers, because now you're out and you among people, and then he introduces you as his friend. And I was about I'm your friend.
You mean your friend?
Yeah, I'm like, no, it ain't like that.
But it is like that.
But it is
to
like
him.
that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it makes it comfortable for him. Mm-hmm. It's like you giving him everything he needs.
Everything he needs.
Yeah, in this moment. Mm-hmm. And then you got to step back and say, no, it ain't like that for me. Mm-hmm. I thought because we were spending time together, hanging out, we was at my house every other day, I was at your house, and we was just always together, that we were a couple. Mm-hmm. Never assume. Never assume. Ask the hard questions. Don't be afraid to ask, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And not only is it, was it that way for me in relationships? I mean, when it comes to my family, when it comes to my friends, now I can say this. I didn't assume when it came to my family or my friends or anything like that. Okay. I always ask questions. I always got answers to them because I'm not going to assume anything. And, when it comes to the friendships, you know how people can assume that you're a friend? Mm-hmm. And they don't ask questions. They don't get answers. Mm-hmm. And then when they find out you're not a friend, mm-hmm. they be like, oh my goodness, I thought you was my best friend. I didn't know you were going to treat me like that. Mm-hmm. So now what? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, you assuming that y'all friends, but to them, you just an associate. That's an associate. You just an associate, because I actually had someone come up under the comments one time, and she was saying that she was having issues with a lot of people assuming that they're friend, not a lot of people, but the difference, someone or whoever assuming that she was their friend, when to her we were just associates. Right. So she said I guess it was one particular girl. She said she had seen her out, and she said, I'm just thinking we're associates. Like, we don't talk on the phone. We don't none of that. She said, but I guess to her, we was considered friends because she's introducing me to, the girl she with. She's like, oh, this is my friend, such and such. And she said she's thinking to herself, like, friend? Right. And she said she don't like that because that's a strong statement, because friend means, we do things together. We hang out. I know you, So how should she have introduced her? She should have introduced her as, just by her name. Maybe she might just said, hey, hey girl. I mean, me personally, if I run into an associate, I just say hi and keep it moving. I'm not really stopping to introduce anybody because it's just an associate. Like, right. I don't need you really don't belong in my business like that. Right. So I just kind of be like, oh, hey girl, and keep it moving. Mm-hmm. Now I do have some associates that we will stop and, oh girl, how you been? And then I may say, oh, this is my husband, or this is my mom, and I introduced because we're having a conversation. I don't want this person to feel left out, like they're just standing there looking crazy. So sometimes things like that I do, but I don't ever say this is my friend. Yeah, like that's an associate and this is my mom. And I'm like, oh, hey mom, this is my friend Keisha. And I don't even got her phone number because my mom gonna walk away and be like, I ain't never met her. That's your friend. Right. And I try to teach my kids that, like, quit, don't be saying people's your friend. Yeah. Like, quit assuming somebody's your friend because y'all go to a party together or something. That's just a person that you kick, you kicking with here and there, you went to a party. Mm-hmm. That ain't somebody you can, trust with your secrets. That ain't somebody that you talk on the phone with every day. Don't assume that that's your friend, because she don't probably see you as a friend, Right. So we gotta stop assuming. I mean, I'll say that's even down to going to the freaking nail shop. Right. Like, don't assume that because you got French tip last time that the French tip gonna be the same this time, because baby, they go up on their prices all the time. All the time. So don't just assume that the French tip, like me, when I get my nails done, I go ask, like, I want this done, how much is it? And I might have just got something similar last week, but I'm still gonna ask the price. You cannot assume. The price could have changed. No, right. So I'm just not going to, because I want to make sure I got enough money. I want to make sure I want to pay that amount for that now. Right. Because let me tell you, I have been to the nail shop and I swear to you, I done got something and 2 weeks later, it was a different price. And I'm like, okay, now I know last time I came, you told me that was $5. Now it's $10. Right. Really? But I can't get mad at that. I just got to choose if I want to get it or not, Right. But what if I had to just assume that it was the same?
And now I go to pay, and last time I paid 50, and now she telling me 65, and I'm gonna be like 65. Oh yeah, we went up on our prices.
A lot of times these nail shops, they don't have prices up. So you do have to ask.
And I'm just saying, even down to the simplest things.
Right. I asked the question before I go.
And if you would ask that, why would you not ask that man if he's your man?
Right.
Why would you not ask that woman if she's your woman?
Right.
You know, why would you not? I say, like, even like with my friends, you know, if we discuss we going out, you know, next weekend, I'm going to still check in during the week to see if we still going out, because I don't want to be sitting up thinking I got plans Saturday and I don't, because you done changed your mind.
That's exactly how you
know it. So I'm going to check in because now I don't want to look up Saturday. Oh, why you didn't tell me? Now I'm sitting here and I'm, you know, thinking we going somewhere. I'm going to check in about that. I'm going to ask, are we still doing that? I'm not just going to assume that plans we made 2 weeks ago are the same, because even though I might feel like they should have said something, I might feel that way. Like, girl, why you didn't say you didn't want to go no more? I shouldn't have to ask you that. I might feel that way, but I'm still going to ask.
You better ask. So
I'm still going to ask. I'm not just going to assume. Because, and guess what? Now, that makes for us not to have to argue.
Right.
That makes for us not to have to be upset with each other.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That makes you get along a lot.
That makes you get along. I mean, this is every aspect of your life. We got to change some things up, and we got to stop assuming, because assuming is crazy out here.
It's crazy.
You know, it's crazy. At least it's so many things. You know, you just assuming you just assuming that you gonna like that job. You know,
come on now.
Go into it feeling like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this job. You know, it's a new job for me. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna see how it goes. Yes, it's something I always do, but this is a different company.
But so while you're on that interview, you gotta ask questions while you're on that interview. You can't assume. You have to ask questions. You can't be afraid to ask questions about the job. Well, do we get benefits? When do we get benefits? How do we get paid? You know, because you don't want to leave that job wondering, oh man, I forgot to ask, do we get benefits?
Is it every week? Is it bi-weekly?
Right. You know, you don't want to assume.
Like, do you get paid every week, bi-weekly? You know, you want to, do I get, like you said, do I get benefits? Like, what's my hours? Because you can't just assume because your last job was 8 to 5 that this is 8 to 5. Now you ask and you like, shoot, I can't do these hours. I got to pick my child up from school.
Right.
I can't do. So now you know, you can't just assume things. You know, that was really good though. Yeah, you can't assume any of that stuff.
Right.
You know,
and then sometimes, a lot of times when you are when you're raised in the way of your parents always telling you, you know, whatever we do in this house stays in this house, it can make you become a person that don't ask a lot of questions, and it may make it where you don't know how to communicate.
I agree with that.
It can make you insecure. It can make you a lot of things. So you really have to address the issue so that you can get answers to
them. I agree with that.
It'll make you feel a lot better. I mean, when you want to know the answer, then rather than assume.
I mean, because if you wanted to know as a kid, I'm sure you wanted to know as a kid,
right?
You know, so why would you not want to know
as an adult?
Right.
And then you really don't want to assume, you know, that this is your man or this is your boyfriend or this is, you know, your partner when you really haven't discussed anything, because it leaves the door wide open to do whatever you want to do. And then when you see a person now you're like, what's going on? And then he's like, when did you think we were together? We never talked about that. I mean, and that's what could go on with a lot of different things, you know, in life. You know, it could be like you assume I like this type of ice cream, but you've never asked me. You know, so you really have to ask a lot of questions to get answers to, because you don't want to assume, because it could take you to places it shouldn't take you to. And then you miss out on a lot in life. You know, and to me, I guess a person that assumes all the time, I look at it as that person's, a lot of times they argue to be right. And a lot of times they don't really know how to communicate in the way that you want them to communicate. So, you know, I think that's important that you
What makes you say that though? What makes you feel like that? Like why you say that?
No. What do you mean?
What makes you feel like that's a person that always wants to be right? That's a person that, you know, what makes you say that?
because they go in because to me they kind of judge a little bit. A person that assumes a lot, a person that goes into a relationship always assuming things and always like, girl, I knew he was like that, or girl, I knew he was gonna be like that, and it turns out that he's different from that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes that person feel like they're always right. So they're always communicating in a way where they want to be right all the time because they're assuming.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's where it takes you to. It takes you to a place of thinking that you know everything.
Okay.
You know that I'm right about this. And then when you find out you're not right about it, then you be like, well, maybe this time I was wrong, but usually that's how it happens,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it can make a person make up a lot of
sometimes they still find a way to be right.
Yeah.
They'll still find some type of way to be right in there.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
And it leaves rooms for people to make up a lot of excuses too. Excuses to why they feel like it is right. They try to make wrong be right, and it's not that way. So that's why I think you shouldn't assume, in a lot of things that are important.
Okay.
Now, if you're watching TV and you just assuming certain things,
you just assuming how the program's going to end. Are you just assuming he's the killer? That's not real life.
I mean, that's cool
in real life.
Right? That's not real life stuff. But stuff that really matter, that means something, stuff that's gonna break your heart, stuff that's gonna make you feel a type of way, stuff that's gonna take you out of your character, stuff that's gonna make you say, "Now, what? Why are you saying that? When this is the way we've always been. I thought we were this and we were that, and we're not. When were you gonna tell me no? When were you gonna ask?" So if you really, want to live a life that isn't always about drama and always about judging, always about having disagreements, you need to ask the important questions so you can get some answers to your questions.
I agree. Stop assuming. Get to the root of it.
Right.
Figure it out. And I mean, that's even too. So that person can't say, oh, this, oh, that, or they can't, say, well, it's this way or that way. No, because I asked you and you said this.
Yeah.
So you can't now come back and say, well, that's not what you meant, or that's not what I, that's not how I thought you took it, or why you take it that way. That ain't how it, No, I didn't take it anyway. That's what you said because we talked about it.
Right.
We communicated about it.
Right.
So that's what you said. So, that too cuts out a lot of that. That cuts out a lot of that too.
It does. And it helps you know more about that person than you thought you knew.
Yep.
And then you don't want to be the type of person that is always assuming stuff, because it will make you always want to be right. And it makes you not look like you all, like what you're talking about. And it could also it damages you in a way too. It makes you set patterns.
Okay.
And then also too, when things ain't going your way, now you wanna argue about it. So now it makes you not be able to really communicate. So I think it's important to be transparent.
Okay.
I think it's important to talk about things that you want. I think it's important to get to the problem. If there's a problem there, you're gonna talk about it. You don't just go in like assuming that this person don't like you.
I would even say, like, even with text messaging, like, don't just assume that because a lot of times with texts, it's like you assume that they yelling at you through the text.
Oh, wow.
You assume because it's an exclamation mark there, or because it's a period there, or because it's capitalized, or like, don't just assume that person is yelling at you. Don't just assume that person is feeling some type of way. Pick up a phone and say, "Hey, girl, I got your text. Is everything good? Are we cool? It made me feel like he was mad at me, or made me feel like he was kind of yelling at me. What are we good?" Like, and then that person, "Oh, girl, my bad. I didn't even realize I had the caps thing on," or, "Oh, girl, yeah, I just was excited, or, oh no, it wasn't nothing like that. I was, texting and driving, and that's just the way it came off." You could, because it just turns out better for you. Now you get a text and you just assuming, and now you like, "Oh, she got an attitude. I ain't fooling with her today. I'm good. Girl, I ain't coming. I'm good. I'm just going to go on home."
Right.
Or you get a text message and you thinking like, "Oh, girl, he's feeling me because da-da-da-da-da." And to him, he don't even know that's what that means.
Right.
He ain't even thinking that deep into the text.
Right.
You know, he just thinking he's just texting.
Right.
You know, so we gotta stop assuming. I say that because I was in line at the store, and I just said, me and this girl had just struck up a conversation. We didn't know each other, and we were just talking about things, and she was saying that she's so not used to this new generation that she was texting her kids and she kept putting a period. And so she said her son called and was like, are you mad at me? Did I do? Why you mad at me?
Now,
she said she was like, what? She was like, what do you mean?
See, that gets to be way too much.
And
gets to be way too much.
She was like, what do you mean? And he was like, because you keep putting a period. And she was like, I just was putting a period, ending my sentence with a period. He's like, oh, well, Mom, just so you know, in this new generation, when you put a period, that's like real aggressive. And she says, she was like, I didn't have no idea that that's even what it meant.
Nice.
So he was assuming she was mad. Right. But what he did do was he picked up the phone and he asked her, was she mad at him? Are you upset at me? He didn't just look at the text and be like, oh, Mom's mad at me. I ain't going over there this weekend. She's mad at me for something.
That time when somebody sent you a text and I think you said, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And they was really angry with you about saying, wow. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what's going on with that? You had to explain that whole text to me. And you was like, we need to talk about this. So you picked up the phone and called and made it clear.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, it happens.
It's deep.
It's just that deep. Assuming gets down to even just text messaging.
It does.
So we just got to start communicating. We got to start picking up the phone. We got to just stop assuming that people mean things that they don't and feel things that they don't. And, stop seeing, telling yourself you seeing stuff that you don't really know is there, or feeling like y'all in a relationship.
Is that a form of being delusional?
It can be. It can be delusional.
Okay.
It can be delusional. Mm-hmm. And at times I can, I can see why you may assume that's your man or that's your woman or that's your friend.
But
I can assume, I can see why the actions have made you feel that way.
Don't assume.
But you can't just assume that it's that way. You got to pick up the phone. You got to ask, like even with me and my husband, when I didn't know what we were before we even got in a relationship, I picked up the phone and I asked, what are we doing? What is this? And he told me. And we went from there. I didn't assume that was my man.
Right.
He didn't assume that I was his woman.
Right.
I picked up the phone and I asked him. Because that's what I wanted. But I didn't know if that's what he wanted.
Right.
So I wasn't just going to assume because that's what I want that's what that is.
Right.
So I picked up the phone and I asked him, and we agreed on that, and we went from there. Because now that we've talked about it and we've agreed and we know that now, you introducing me as a friend is a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You kicking it with another woman is a problem. Would be a problem.
It's a problem too when you assume. When you assume.
You really can't get mad because y'all never talked about if that was your man.
But a lot
if that was your woman, y'all never had the talk.
Right. It's a lot of times it's good for the person that is trying to have their way.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you are just going along with the program, so they good.
Of course, they hoping and praying you don't have the conversation. Right. They hoping and praying that you don't ask. Because guess what? Mm-hmm. Now when I do get caught, guess what? I didn't know. I didn't know we was together. I never knew. We never talked about that. Mm-hmm. We never told her that.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes like you can say, well, I know this for a fact to be true. I know if you're talking about this person, you talking about me. So that's not assuming. You know what I'm saying? That to me, that's not assuming. How you feel about that?
Kind of elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Okay, what I'm saying is, just like if a person's always calling you talking about people, they're always calling you gossiping. To me, you gotta know they gotta be talking about you too.
Oh yeah.
So you're not really assuming.
I still think that's assuming.
You think that's assuming?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell me why you think that's assuming.
Because you don't know for sure.
You don't know?
Mm-mm.
So you think if you ask them, they're gonna tell you they've been talking about you?
I mean, they may not, but that's still assuming. Technically, you're still assuming.
Okay, let's just say that's a form of assuming.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fact.
I don't know if I agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well,
because
why?
I'm saying, okay, for me, if someone is calling me talking about one of our other friends, I would, it is easy to assume that they're talking about me too. It is easy to assume that. But I'll say this. Okay. I'll say this. I had a friend that did used to call and gossip to me about our other friends. And when I finally talked to them and things came out, they told me she never said nothing to them about me. Okay. She never talked about me to them. Okay. So that's why I said it can be assuming, because I guess she valued us more than them. So because she valued us more than them, she didn't talk about me to them. Okay. They were like, wow. I mean, because, I asked, like, well, I felt, and they were like, well, honestly, no, she never said nothing to us about you. Okay. She never said nothing to me about you. And I'm like, really? Yeah.
So that would be definitely a good friend.
Yes and no.
Okay, yes and no. Explain.
Just because she didn't talk about me to them doesn't mean that other things didn't fall short. Okay. So, okay. I mean, okay. Yes, I do appreciate that. Okay. But it doesn't mean that other things didn't fall short. Okay. It doesn't mean that, it's more to it than just that to me. Is that a good quality? I mean, yes and no, because I feel like keep that same energy with them. Don't call me and talk about them either. Just don't do that. Okay. Because when she was calling and talking to me about certain things, I would kind of be like, I don't see that. I don't get that image. Okay. I kind of stood on what I felt. Okay. You just can't tell me anything.
Right. So you gotta
just
think
I'm gonna be like,
right.
Oh, okay, right. Girl. I kind of, I don't know about that, or I didn't really see them to be that way, or I didn't really get that feel, or I don't agree with that. I kind of stood my ground on that. Okay. So that's why I say I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
But I do see how you can assume that, because I definitely assumed it was the same. Okay. And now that I did assume. Okay. I did assume that it's probably the same. So when I heard it wasn't, I was like, oh, really? Okay. Well, there goes that. So that's why I say, but a lot of times it does go that way. It does. But we can't assume, because I would have definitely assumed that, guys.
But that's a good,
and it wasn't like that.
Right, but that's a good point that you brought out. That's another reason why you shouldn't assume until you actually know. Because you don't really know what's going on until you look into it or you ask questions and things of that nature. So that's why you don't want to assume. And that's good that you said that, and I'm glad you said that.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's why I say I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
That's why I say that.
Right.
But, we also can get into a little bit more of that at
a later time.
Okay. But I want us to just stop assuming. I just want people to stop assuming,
right.
And
I
ask the questions and get down to the nitty gritty of it all. Ask the hard questions, even when you don't want to.
Right.
And I mean, that's even younger people, ask your parents. Don't just assume they're going to say no. Don't just assume, stop assuming, because also when we start assuming, it just carries on and on and on. And
well, actually, it becomes a pattern.
It becomes a pattern for
you. And it makes life a little difficult for you.
In all aspects, because you tend to assume. When you assume, you just start assuming in every aspect of your life. Right. So we got to break that pattern.
Right. You got to break.
And we got to stop assuming, and we just gotta ask the questions and get down to it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad we had this talk today, because that was really a topic that I really wanted to touch on. So I'm glad I'm glad we talked about it.
I think you really touched on that subject. I think you did great on that subject.
Okay, we did good.
And I got a really good understanding about don't assume.
Don't assume.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't assume.
Don't assume.
All right.
So, what do we say? If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. All right, we spilled this tea.
Spill this tea.
See you next time.
Thanks.